bad news. Okay. So we are here to discuss two change orders, and we're going to give a little project overview of where we are at this point. So, you want to go ahead and do that?
Sure. So I think I was here about a year ago at this time, kind of introducing the project to this board. And it's just a reminder to that project. This is associated with the Fairlife project. It's a sanitary sewer upsizing to allow for the additional flows from that facility. In this first slide, you can see about 95% of the project has been completed. They're kind of in the final stretch right now. Actually, since this slide, I think they even advanced another manhole or two more down the road. They actually have two manholes left.
Of the sanitary.
Of the sanitary. They have to go back through and replace some storm sewer in Schlegel and do some restoration work. As you've driven by Schlegel, you've seen it's not finished. A lot of progress has been made since this started, and not unlike any other construction project, there have been change orders associated with this, and most of them have been fairly minor quantity adjustments and the like. But I believe the two that are on the town board agenda are related to change orders 3 and 5, and I believe those were over the $50,000 that needed town board approval. So first one, change order 3, over by, this is the change order 5, but change order 3, just going in chronological order, was associated with slight relocation of some sewer in Boulder Industrial Park. The original plan for the entire project was that the new sewer stay in the same trench, same location as the existing sewer to ensure that it maintained and stayed within the easements, and that the variable high bedrock throughout this whole area wouldn't be encountered. So the goal with this project is wherever the sewer is before, it's going to go back in the same spot, just larger to accept these flows. Over by Bolter, there's a large 54-inch diameter water authority distribution main that was put in after the sanitary sewer was put in. The record plans that we were provided from the water authority indicated that we had plenty of clearance, but when the contractor got out on site, it was evident that water authority ran into bedrock and they placed their water main right on top of the sewer. To avoid damaging the giant distribution main, it was decided to reroute around that. So we had to add a couple manholes and a little bit extra run of sewer. Those were all essentially quantities that the contractor had given us prices for. So they just updated it based on the additional materials. And then change order 5, which is the larger one, along Schlegel Road from Phillips basically up to the elementary school. It was discovered that asbestos pipe was the original pipe in the ground dating back over 50 years ago. The town did provide record plans, and in one small corner it made reference to an abbreviation for asbestos pipe, but that was not noticed by anybody during the design process, and we weren't made aware of it until actually the contractor started removing it, and we said, hey wait, we thought it was reinforced concrete pipe, this is asbestos concrete pipe. The difference is that asbestos is a contaminant, and per the Department of Labor needs to be disposed of properly. So it can't be disposed of in the same manner that normal pipe could be. So as a result of that, had to get Paradigm and another asbestos handling company on board to work with the contractor. This also did cause the contractor to submit a change order due to the delays in which it would take to remove it. They submitted change orders for increased time, increased labor to do that work. At this point, we're out of the asbestos. It's all been removed. The asbestos handlers are off-site now. So that was the larger change order, and that has since been addressed and remedied.
You said that there was a note, I would assume, on one of the drawings that
It was
there was asbestos there?
It was a hand-drawn plan. It was, a blurry scan of a plan, and it was in one corner. It wrote it's ACP, but I think in our haste it looked like an R. So, due to the depth of the sewer, it being about 20 feet deep, 24 feet deep, it would be an OSHA restriction to go down in it. So it didn't go down, in hindsight, maybe should have gone down due to the age of the sewer and tested it beforehand, but I think this project was fast-tracked due to kind of when it needed to be done. And it would have been something that would have needed to be handled regardless, because first thing we did was look for alternate routes, just to avoid this altogether. But there were no other easements available. This area where we're in, it was very narrow easements to begin with, only 15 foot wide easements, and there's water main and utility poles that were all in the way. So it was decided to remove the asbestos pipe, and it's our opinion that if it were put out to bid this way, likely would have incurred higher costs than if it were handled this way. If it were open bid, a contractor would have put higher prices on it if it were open bid versus, actually the contractor was very willing to work with us.
I understand that. I guess, let me ask you this question, okay? Because I know in certain houses that were built in a certain year, and we go in to do renovations, it's automatically mandatory that we have to do an asbestos survey. Do those same requirements, are they germane to pipes that have been under the ground for 50 years?
No, and actually,
Okay.
replacement of pipes of this vintage are somewhat rare. Most of the pipes of that age are still in the ground today, so this is likely something the town of Webster going forward is going to have to contend with, because we probably have quite a bit of infrastructure right now that is asbestos concrete pipe.
All right, thank you.
So, and here's the thing, I would like to thank Paul and Mike and your team to be able to pivot as quickly as they did and Thomas, we can pick Thomas, to try to keep this going, different hydraulics and layouts and trying to minimize costs and working with our contractor. The fault lies with me. This is my project, that these weren't brought to the board. We were moving so quickly, that's on me. Paul was aware of everything, but
I'm gonna disagree with you on this one, all right? I appreciate you throwing on the sword, but I think the overriding thing that needs to be remembered here is that this project is being done because Fairlight needs that pipe larger. And we negotiated a contract with Fairlight because we decided as a town board last year that, hey, as long as we're making this for 2 million gallons a day that you're gonna do, we might as well, while you're in the hole, put a new pipe in. What if we made the pipe a little bigger and got the town 800,000 gallons more a day capacity? And for that 800,000 gallons more of capacity, the town is going to pay 4% of this project. So Coke Fairlife is paying 96% of all costs of this project. The project was bonded for $7.1 million, I think. And when it came in, it was going to be at about $6.3 million. So Coke Fairlife, who the one thing that I've said probably have just pounded into art. I don't care what happens on this. And then let me finish that statement. As long as you let Coke Fairlife know every step of the way, they need to know every contingency move, every change order, because they're paying 96% of it. And Coke Fairlife is like, we need this project done yesterday. They wanted this thing done in December of 2024 because their schedule was to start putting flow down through there on a test basis in April of 25. So as this was happening back in November and December, believe me, our office got a ton of calls because we had to close down Phillips Road. There was a lot of mess involved in this thing, all right? We're trying to move fast. We're trying to acquiesce to Coke Fairlife, who's ultimately paying 96% of it. This project now with these delays and this change order and whatever, which, Kyle, this is called non-pro-tunc, so we're just gonna, as Charlie taught me, we're gonna get this all papered up. I'm not gonna put any blame on anybody on this. Coke Fairlife knows exactly what's going on. Coke Fairlife has been apprised of this. Coke Fairlife is at a point in their plant where they're not ready to put flow down here on a test basis in April. So on the last page of this, where this is gonna be done in June, Coke Fairlife is like, that's okay, because we won't be able to test this thing probably until August or September. How many times will I have to say during this Coke Fairlight? They were the ones that needed to be appeased on this. Because they're paying 96% of it. And they were made aware of it all the way along. I don't know if you, Art, I appreciate you saying that's your fault, this and that. The fact of the matter is, we're coming back, we're documenting this up. This is not, we are getting 96% of this project paid for by Coke Fairlight. They are well aware of these change orders, and they know that you do the math on these two change orders, 96% of that is being paid by Coke Fairlight. I think that's very critical to this, and I appreciate what you said, Art. Nah, we'll get you when it's something really your fault and it ended up being a real problem. Because, I mean, look, you know, it's like a car accident. Someone could have swerved. Paul Adams knew this was going on. I knew this was going on. I don't think I know if Kyle knows what was going on because you were just onboarding back in November and December. A lot of us knew. And no one said, geez, you know what, that's a change order that's going to be over $50,000, which needs board approval. Because it's still a municipal bonded project. It's a hybrid bond of 10 years that is basically where we can stand on a mountaintop, as Barclay Damon and their attorneys for Coke Fairlight negotiated this and constructed this with our attorneys, both Charlie Genesi at the time, but our outsourced attorney, Jeff Storch from Harris Beach. Because we need to be above reproach and say, hey, we are not ingratiating a private company on public infrastructure. In this 10-year bond, you can stand on a mountaintop and say to the world, yeah, this is a municipal project. They're paying 96% of it. All by the book. That, to me, is the most important thing to remember on this. Not so much that we should have come here in November and December and gotten this change order taken care of. Ideally, yes. But in the whole scheme of things, we're good.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I do take ownership of these projects. But to your point, there was no time to wait for another board meeting and so forth. But I do appreciate that. I do take ownership of this stuff. And we'll keep plugging along and get it done.
So I'm confused, this is done, and like all this work is done, and it was done in October and November?
Change orders were issued at that point. Some of the work is done, some of the work is being completed.
Okay.
In October? That was, I could have sworn this was like a December sludge thing. Oh, shouldn't say sludge around sewer.
Change order.
Let me see when you first told
In
me.
November,
We found
end of November.
end of November. I had a feeling it was going into December, and it was like, oh. And the first thing we did was go to Coke Fairlight.
We did, we absolutely did. And we cut open Phillips Road and right after.
Okay. So honestly, the town board members, you know, if you have questions, concerns on this, because we have this as 2 of the 10 resolutions on our next meeting after this workshop, I mean, we can either talk about them right now during the workshop, or when we come in 5 minutes, because we got to shut down, right, Mark, and start again. We can continue to have discussion when we go to those 2 resolutions.
I just had a question, but let me discuss this as my question. And
Hey, if we answer GIS, we'll get
because we have a standard when it comes to residents, I just was wondering if the standard was the same for underground, that's all.
All
Wasn't
due well.
casting any aspersions whatsoever on the cost or the timing whatsoever.
So it's
Asking a question out of curiosity regarding asbestos.
Yeah, all DOL regulations were followed, and we had a asbestos certified handler, and we had a monitor on site.
Yeah.
I just want to say, my monologue was not because, John, I thought you were casting aspersions or whatever. There's people in this room, there's people that are going to watch this thing. If I didn't say what I said, nobody's ticking and tying that this is a Coke Fairlight project that they're paying 96% on, and that we cut a contract with them a year ago to do that. And that they needed this done fast. If that wasn't spoken, I don't think that's in the records, it won't be in the minutes if I don't say it, It had nothing to do with me interpreting that you were casting aspersions, whatever.
Just wanna make sure.
But no,
Absolutely not.
I think that's a good question. So, again, all department favor, rules of follow.
All right, well that, I think, concludes the workshop. I will say that I talked to Art about this today. The thing that I'm excited about on June 30th is that I talked to Paul Adams, our finance director, today. The payment due on the bond anticipation note for the $6.3 million that we went into debt last year in August on this project, that's due in August of 2025. And we pay the bill, whether it's interest only or principal and interest, and then per the contract, within a certain amount of days, Fairlight pays us 96% of that. We have to pay the bond directly. It's our bond. Then Paul, having all the costs, because we will know the exact actual cost by then, because this project will be done for a month and a half, 2 months, he now can tie up exactly what the last 9 years of the bond is. The bond anticipation note for the first year was kind of a, where are we at this point, and it's meant to be a 1-year thing. But then he's gonna lock in the interest rate for the remaining 9 years. It'll be a 9-year amortization schedule for the remaining principal and interest. And based on the contract we have with Coke Fairlight, when we make those bond payments in the years 2026 through 2034, per the contract a few days later, we will get 96% of that reimbursed to us by Coke Fairlight. So it's important to have the exact final dollars known. I'd like it to be a month to 2 months ahead of when that August, tying up paying the last year's band and setting up the last 9 years of the bond. Put a nice ribbon around it, and as long as we put it in the system to bill them for the next 9 years, my guess is over that time, the 800,000 gallons a day that we have other places that can lateral into, I couldn't even tell you how much income we'll pick up revenue from the one-time tie-in laterals, housing developments, or something on the Xerox campus. But I think when we figured it out, at our current $1,000 per EDU, or our industrial, whatever, I think it was around $5 million.
So the ROI on that was pretty good.
Yeah, and that's why the board at that time, if we remember when we did this deal, we said, well, 4% of a potentially $7 million project is $280,000. Why would we spend $280,000 to upsize this pipe by another 800,000 gallons? Potential for $5 million in one-time revenue as other developments lateral into that, or more likely, development on the Xerox campus.
That makes sense, Mike. All of it makes sense, and it was the right thing to do, it's the right thing to upsize it for the future, no questions about all of that. My only question is, and maybe it's a silly question, but if this change order was signed in November, it's April, why didn't we see it sooner, why didn't we know sooner?
We dropped the ball.
And
It came up, Paul brought it up at a meeting when we were putting this together. He goes, those are over 50,000, we really need to go to the board. And as soon as he said that, it went on this agenda. Art missed it. Like I said, Kyle, I'm not gonna hold you responsible because you were onboarding back in November and December, so you really weren't at the table for these meetings. Paul, myself, Patty, we're moving fast. I've already said this, I'm being redundant. My whole mantra was, does Coke know? Speak now or forever hold their peace. I don't want to get back in the room with their attorneys to have them swirl on us when they say, we weren't aware of these change orders and we never authorized this, and that's not part of the contract. That was my concern, and because that was such a focus in my concern, I took my eye off the ball of municipal law, if you want to say. Now, Kyle, I think, as you know, non-pro-tunc, we have a mechanism to remedy that. We're doing that tonight. So that's the answer.
Okay,
Just never thought about it, and when we did, I think it was a couple weeks ago in an all things sewers meeting, and Paul said, I think you gotta bring that to the town board, I think that's, paper it up. And here we are,
Okay.
all right?
Do they not have to pay if it were, if they agreed to it, but it isn't in writing, so we trust that they're gonna put this whole thing in writing and agree to pay for everything?
They
The
did,
difference.
it was always important for them to come back and just paper trail it, yep, go for it, move ahead, we understand.
Okay.
The contract is for the bonding right now, which is 7.1 million. We were floating around 6.3, 6.4. These change orders get up to around 6.8, 6.9.
So it's still within
You
the
got
size of the bond, which is
Yeah.
good, so you don't.
And within the size of the contract.
Yep, okay.
And the contract that we have with Coke has flexibility to the final cost of the project changing. It has mechanisms for this type of stuff.
Yeah, most
So that's all good.
Most construction projects have contingencies with respect to change orders. Change orders are above and beyond the original scope of a project and are subject to
Bernard, I think you said
labor,
we have
materials,
about
overhead, profits.
100,000 left of contingency as of now, around that?
We do. There's some debits and credits, and this is a fluid situation, if you will, because of what we're dealing with, soils and by